Okay, well, first of all, everyone, welcome to our webinar, first one of the year in January. Today, what we're going to be doing is going ahead and showing you Hire2Retire, this time with how we connect to Google Directory. If you are here and you have Active Directory as your identity management platform, totally fine. There's a lot of similarities. If you did want to see a specific Active Directory demo, let us know. We can have one personally for you based off what you're looking for. But for today, I will go ahead and get started by introductions. I'm Alexis, an account executive here. I'll pass it over to Brahm.
I'm Brahm Gupta, and I head products at RoboMQ.
I'm Cameron. I'm also an account executive here with RoboMQ.
And I'm David. I'm also on the same account executive team. Thanks for joining today.
Okay, wonderful. So what I'll do is I'll take you to the first part of this webinar where I'm going to just quickly go over the products, its benefit, or maybe a slide deck show before I hand it off to Alexis to show you the real thing, which is the product. Wonderful. So can you guys see my screen? Okay, that's good. So just as a short introduction about the product, Hire2Retire is an employee identity lifecycle management product. What it does is it gets information from HR and or ATS system. We support something like 26 HR and ATS systems. It gets the employee profile data from there, and it enables employee IT onboarding, lifecycle management, identity provisioning, privilege provisioning, access provisioning, as well as integration with the service desk systems for resource and asset provisioning. So we cover almost everything that a sysadmin will have to do when you onboard an employee, offboard employee, or change of profile happens. So getting to the agenda of this meeting, we already had the introduction. We'll get into the problem statement. We also look at the core capabilities on the solution approach, and then I'll hand it off to Alexis to show the demo. Unlike the previous webinars, this time we have chosen Google Workspace, or as earlier called Google Cloud Directory, as an identity system. We do integrate with Okta. We do integrate with Microsoft Active Directory and its variation, which is on-prem AD, hybrid AD, as well as Entra AD on the setup. The Google Workspace, as many of you who are familiar with Google Workspace know, it has lesser feature than full-blown hybrid AD setup. So you will see a demo which will have lesser capabilities than if you have seen the product or seen us on the web on our capabilities. And as Alexis said, right, if you are into the Microsoft space, you can always reach out to us and we can talk to you and do a personalized demo for you. Now jumping onto the problems that we solve, essentially managing the employee lifecycle from an identity perspective. The HR lifecycle is managed in the HR system. We manage it in the identity system where it focuses on identity, security, privileges, which are role-based, access and resource provisioning. And in absence of a product like us, and I was saying they don't not there's the audio struggle.
Yeah, checking with David.
Okay. Looks like now it doesn't show that. I think there was constant one after. Oh, now it should be okay. So, okay, coming back. So, sometimes you don't show up in the GAL, which is not good, right? I mean, if you're on the GAL, everybody knows who you are, who you report to, and so on. It provides a good experience, and they say that the people who have good first day at work experience, they stay at organization longer. So that's what happens, and that's what we solve. Then this work that a sysadmin does is a repetitive, mundane, boring work that automation can do, and can do it not more reliably because it just follows the steps versus thinking through every time. And then the last one is security and reputation risk, because terminated employees may leave with the access, which might give them access to sensitive information. We see these kind of things happen a lot in today's world, so we ensure that there's a security compliance as well as we have audit trail capabilities that Alexis will show when we get to the demo. Now, these are the key benefits: superior first day at work experience, as I talked, syncing the employee profiles from HR to AD, role-based access control, and access provisioning. So you get the privileges and you get the access based on your role-based access control, as well as we support attribute-based access control. Then integration with some 8 or 10 of the service desk integration platform. You can create tickets, you can create incident, you can trigger the workflow so that whatever has to be done manually or through the tickets or through the workflows can be handled by the ITSM systems, example being allocating laptop, devices, getting certain approvals done, and so on. Then we avoid security and compliance risk. So security risk by making sure people have need-to-know basis access. And on the compliance side, we help you achieve compliance with SOC 2, ISO 27001, and another NIST cybersecurity standards. By having this platform perform the employee identity lifecycle management, so you have a process for doing it, and then our audit trail, which captures the full data capture as to what changed on HR and led to what changes on identity. That full information will provide you the proof as to what you do.
So just a quick jump in, it might be worth it to unshare the screen and then share it again to ensure the visual ability.
Okay. Visual is not showing there?
For a moment, yeah.
Okay. So let's see. No, I'm not sharing the right one. Now you can see it?
I can see it.
Okay. So now jumping on to at very high level, the core process that we automate is JML, joiner, mover, and leaver. And as you see in this slide, we do all that has to be done on the IT or identity side when employees go through these life cycle of joiners, movers, and leavers. Onboarding, role changes, or offboarding, which includes a lot of things. You see the list: GAL, identity creation, privilege, removing the access, converting the share mailbox, and so on and so forth. We also support onboarding, which is definitely a critical part of it. And as you see this picture, while HR is onboarding the employee from the HR side, like doing the background check, doing the new hire paperwork, doing the employment eligibility check, I-9, we can create the employee record in advance. And that's a big thing because the IT gets enough window of opportunity to get things ready for the employees to join the organization. And in order to achieve it, either we have the employee information available in the payroll or HR system ahead of the start date. If that is not the case, then we also integrate with the recruiting or ATS platforms so that we can get the information about the employees who are in the HR onboarding process, going through that process before the start date, so that IT can do whatever it needs to do to be ready for it. Very horizontal platform, as you might have seen, HR processes, pretty horizontal processes, and then we integrate with some 18 or so HR systems, and then another bunch of ATS systems. I believe the total HR ATS systems that we integrate is 26, so you will be covered. And if you have Google Workspace, yes, you're covered on the identity side, along with Okta and the Microsoft that I talked about. We pride ourselves in working for the customers. I mean, those are the ones who pay our bills. We realize and act accordingly. We take care of our customers very well. Our customer success team is awesome. We get great reviews around it. We just don't sell the product. We sell the product, we get you implemented, we make sure you are having benefit out of the product, and that's what keeps us in business, and that's how we solve the problem. So, and you can check out our G2 reviews. They're phenomenal because of our customer success team and the kind of support that we provide and the quality of the product. Definitely, it's quality of the product, no code nature of the product, and coverage of the capabilities and functionalities that we have. So that's kind of it. This is before and after view basically says that most of the places there's either some kind of a scripting automation or a ticket is created by HR to have the identity provisioning done. When you automate with us, it will be fully automated. This is a more detailed view of what we do, but I think instead of me telling this, I think Alexis will do a better job than I to show it live on the product. And then in a summary, we fall under the lightweight IGA capabilities. So we are not Saviynt, we are not SailPoint, but we provide a very niche space, or we cover a very niche space of the identity governance and administration segment, where we focus on employee lifecycle management, identity, privilege, access, and resource provisioning. But our future roadmap, where we are adding things like employee 360 and so on, we are expanding into the IGA space. So from being a very niche, we are adding more advanced enterprise features to continue to make progress and have a living, breathing product that continues to add value to all of you. So with that, I'll let Alexis take over and show you the product.
Thank you, Brahm. I will go ahead then and share my screen to the product. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So what you're looking at right now is what you would see when you first log in to Hire2Retire. All of these gray boxes you're looking at are workflows. You can have as many as you like. You can have multiple different accounts. So that allows for that segregation of duty from promotion to production. In this case, I will go ahead to this workflow. And the first thing that you see when you click a workflow is going to be this overview tab. You can think of it as an overview document or a business process document. Essentially, all of the steps that you choose to take in your workflows will be spit out here in plain English. Which attributes you're choosing to send to us from your HR system, how you want to map those into Google Directory, or if in your case Active Directory, same process here, as well as which steps you would like to automate at the various lifecycle stages. So when you're getting hired, change of role or profile update, termination, and so forth. And then another thing to point out here is while we are a no-code self-service product, we're technically coding behind the scenes. So what you can always do is if you deploy the product, make some changes, didn't like how they looked, redeployed it, you can always go ahead to version history and roll back to the last known good state. Now heading to the identity tab, this is where you make the bulk of those workflow decisions. First step is pretty straightforward. You pick your HR system. In the case of this workflow, we've selected ADP here, but if you see your HR system on this list, these are all the ones we natively integrate with. We also can integrate with other HR systems as well, so let us know if there's one you don't see on this list that you're interested in potentially integrating with. And we are continuously adding to this as well. You'll also see here, for examples like Paycom Onboarding, we do connect with ATS systems as well. So if that's something you're interested in, it's something that Hire2Retire supports. And in terms of data integration method, there's often two ways that we'll connect to your HR system, API or file extract. Both are essentially the same in terms of functionality. It can differ on your end in terms of implementation, time, or price, but that's something that also differs for HR system as well. And finally, identity management type. These are the ones we currently support, as well as Okta, like Brahm mentioned. In the case of this workflow, we're selecting Google Directory. Jumping to the next step, of course, in order for this workflow to work, we must be connected to two things, and that's going to be your HR system and your identity management platform, such as Google Directory. This step is where you set up those connections. Pretty straightforward, but once you do have that connected, you can go ahead to the rest of the workflow. Now, once you do have everything set up, next thing, of course, is going to be choosing which attributes you want to send from your HR system over to Hire2Retire to sync to your Google Directory. In this case, with API, you'll see that all of the attributes ADP has are automatically going to be here. There's no action required on your end, except to simply select whichever attributes you want to send to us. If you don't want to send it, you can simply uncheck it, and you'll see all of those attributes chosen here. So the ones you're looking at are total options you can choose. Pretty much up to you to do how many attributes, whether that's first name, last name. Supervisor ID helps us keep your gal current. The one attribute we do require is associate ID because it acts for us like a unique identifier, helps us know that John Smith in Google directory is the same as John Smith in ADP. Now, for those of you that may have employees in different time zones, one thing to point out is this feature here, because what it allows us to do is support scheduled events based off the time zone of your employees. So, for example, someone's last day is next Friday, and at 6 p.m. you would like to go ahead and have all their access and privileges removed. With this feature enabled, you can make sure that that happens at 6 p.m. in their time zone. And once you do have all those attributes selected, the next thing is going to be mapping them into your Google directory. So all of those attributes you just selected will be available here. You can easily drag and drop them to the corresponding attribute, but we also can support data transformations modeled off of Excel using these functions here. So an example use case might be for their common name, if you wanted to use their preferred name instead of their first name, that's something you can put into these boxes, and that ability is available throughout any of these attributes. In terms of your UPN, we have a few options here you can choose from: preferred name.last name, first name initial.last name, as well as how to handle your duplicates. So some ways that we can do that are the typical numerical system, or maybe putting a middle initial. Whatever standard you choose will now be automatically applied if that situation ever arises. Hire2Retire will see that and know how to handle. So that's about it for this step. I'll go ahead and jump to lifecycle business rules, which is where you choose which steps you want to automate during these lifecycle stages. For example, hire and rehire, we can create the account for you, as well as what type of password you would like, if you'd like them to require to change it when they first sign in. And this is another time where scheduled events comes into play. So for example, let's say HR gave you a heads up of an incoming new hire a couple weeks in advance, but you don't need to know until 5 days in advance. You can have that selected here, and what that means is 5 days before that employee's start date, we'll go ahead, create their account in a disabled state. You can do enabled if you choose, but disabled has higher security benefits. And then from there, you can go ahead and do other features of your choice, such as sending a ticket to IT. Maybe it'll say, hey, first name, last name is joining on blank start date. Please get them a laptop. Please get them a desk space. You can also choose, since this account is now in a disabled state, when to automatically enable it as well. So for example, if you choose 9 a.m. here, then for that employee's first day at 9 a.m., their account is now enabled. They have access to everything they need. Third-party applications are automatically provisioned, which I'll show you in this demo as well, and it should be a seamless automatic process. Moving forward to change of profile or role, this is where you can choose how you want to handle access in those cases. So we have a few options here. Our most popular by far is retain all groups not defined in group mapping automation. What that means is, let's say someone's changing from the sales department to the marketing department. Hire2Retire will see that. If this option is selected, Hire2Retire will go ahead and take away their sales access, give them the marketing access as determined by the rule sets you make on Hire2Retire. But if there was any access given to them outside of those rule sets, Hire2Retire will go ahead and leave that alone. So it essentially accounts for any access that might be given to someone untraditionally for their role. Now for termination, there's a variety of steps we can automate for you here, including moving their OU, maybe to a terminated OU, purging any attributes like personal email address or personal phone number upon termination. And another time for scheduled events, we do support scheduled terminations. So this is like the example I was giving earlier. Someone gives you their resignation 2 weeks from now on their last day. You want to go ahead and have that access removed at 6 p.m. if that's what you select here. Hire2Retire will see that and know to wait until their last day at that time to move forward with these termination steps. However, not every termination is scheduled, and we support immediate termination as well. So the way that can work, if HR puts, for example, in ADP in this case, for termination reason, they type in involuntary, If Hire2Retire sees that, then regardless of their last day worked or whether they're still on the payroll, we'll go ahead with all of these termination steps. Those include how you want to handle security groups and mailing list memberships, like removing all of them, as well as depleting the account after a certain aging period, if you would like. If there are different situations for this, such as only people with certain job titles, you want them to have an aging period of maybe 90 days, while other job titles you'd rather never, you can have that option here, and what I'm showing you right now is a lookup table. So, attributes-wise, all of the options that come up here are going to be the ones you selected in that HR data definition set. Pretty easy and straightforward in terms of how you want to handle this. We do support and/or logic here. So in this case, maybe for people whose job titles contain manager, then after an aging period of 60 days, you want to go ahead and get rid of the account. Otherwise, never. So this is something you can play around with. You'll notice this icon here is available throughout the platform, and that's essentially what it does. Last thing here is leave. So if you do have a standard way of handling leave, such as disabling the user, or a certain way that you want to put an OU for them, including security groups, mailing lists, etc., you can have that selected here. Let's say for you guys, long-term leave is more of a case-by-case situation. No problem, you can always go ahead, uncheck this box, and Hire2Retire won't manage that life cycle. Jumping forward to OU assignment, the way that we handle this is by rule sets and concept of priority. So what that means, let's say a new hire is coming in to your company, Hire2Retire will see that, and first thing they'll do is go to the first priority rule set. Is that employee in this department and this location? If so, place them in this OU. If none of these apply, we'll go over to that second priority rule set with the same logic, keep going down, and you'll see that it typically gets more general. Finally, if none of these rule sets apply, that employee will be placed into a default OU. Now in terms of group memberships, you'll see it looks kind of similar to OU, except the difference here is there's no concept of priority because you can be in multiple security groups, multiple mailing lists. The way it works also has and/or logic for attributes, and it's also dynamic. So let's say someone is getting promoted from HR associate to HR manager. Hire2Retire will see that, and they'll know which security groups to add, remove, or retain based off of the rule sets you've created. You can have as many rules as you like, you can get as complicated as you like here, and there are also default security groups and mailing lists that you can use for your employees. This step here, Communication Hub, is essentially custom email-based data-rich templates that you can automatically send out at any of these lifecycle stages. So for example, onboarding stage, maybe you want to have an automatic email sent on someone's first day, just welcoming them into the company. Once you go and click one of these options, you'll see you can choose which lifecycle to send this out at. It can also be conditional, so maybe this sort of email will differ in terms of the content based off of whether they're remote or in office, or their department, that sort of thing. It can be from your own email and encrypted. And down here, you'll see subject and body. You can put whatever you would like in here. On the right, you'll see all of the attributes, either from the HR system or Google Directory in this case, that you can drag and drop within this email body, and therefore it'll be dynamic for each person, and therefore applicable to each person. You can also add things like your company signature. You can add images, attachments. People can get pretty creative with the use cases of Communication Hub, but a couple examples are things like what you're seeing now, maybe an email to the employees. Perhaps it's an email to your IT system that automatically gets sent out for things like resource provisioning. Maybe you want to share the password with the manager or have an employee acknowledge the company handbook. These are just a few use cases that you can have with Communication Hub. So jumping to the Service Desk tab, what you'll see here are the ITSMs that we currently natively integrate with. If you see your ITSM here, that's great. If your current one maybe isn't here but has a REST API, that's something we can connect with as well. And if not, let us know. We are consistently adding to this. We have feature releases every 4 to 6 weeks. So if you were, let's say, to have Jira as your current help desk, you'll notice when you are using it that it looks pretty similar to Communication Hub, but it has more detailed field level based mapping. So some familiar things, the fact it can be conditional, which operation you want this to send out at, but then there's a few help desk specific abilities here. Like for Jira, you can select the project, the request type, and you do not have to manually put anything into here in terms of request type and project. We'll get that straight from your Jira. Another familiar thing you might see is these boxes on the right. You can also drag and drop them to have these messages be dynamic according to the employee. For Access tab, I've mentioned a little bit, and as did Brom, the third-party applications we can natively integrate with, as well as provision and deprovision. The ones you're looking at here, we have about 150 or so right now that we natively integrate with and connect with, so feel free to look through these icons, see if there's any familiar to you and your company. This is also something that we are constantly adding to with every feature release. If there's one you're interested in, but maybe you don't see here right now, let us know. We're always interested to know which ones to use to grow our sim library. And additionally, if you do have a connection to any of these, it will continue to be dynamic. If someone's role, say, changes from sales associate to sales manager, we can know for Salesforce that they now need a different license level and have that change made accordingly. Now for the Observe page, this is where you can see all the changes that Hire2Retire is making on one easy-to-view page. So first thing here, you can kind of see an overview, but you can also get into the details as well. So for example, if you want to organize it by lifecycle or status, and you want to see what happened to the employee here on the date, in this case of January 13th, you can go ahead and click this icon. What you will see first is the attributes that we got from your HR system, as well as what attributes are in Google Directory. So a thing to point out here is Hire2Retire is versionable, and it will save the previous attribute as well as the new one. You can see what that used to be, what it is now, and as a result, which security groups were added, removed, or retained, as well as mailing lists. If you did want to view this without going straight to Hire2Retire, you do have the option to schedule a report. Maybe every Monday and Thursday at 9, you'd like to get a detailed summary of all the changes made by Hire2Retire. You can do that here. Now, all of the rich data that you see here can also be piped into your audit trail. So you have a few options here. AWS 3, MySQL, and Azure Blob are all ways that you can use for compliance requirements. And of course, straight on the platform, all included with Hire2Retire. But for Hire2Retire itself, there are two modes that we have. One is autopilot, which just essentially means when we get that change from your HR system, we'll go ahead and change access and privileges accordingly. Or if maybe you want to have a little bit more overview on site because you're used to it being a manual process right now, you just want to look at everything and approve or reject it before it becomes official, you have supervised mode. In that case, you'll go to this review tab. And from here, you can see that when you click something, such as an update, you can see very similarly to the Observe page, which attributes we got from HR, as well as what change is made or would be made in Google Directory, and as a result, which security groups or mailing lists would be added, removed, or retained. So the difference here in Observe page is this hasn't happened yet, but it will if you choose to accept it, and if reject, then this won't happen, and those access changes won't occur. That's about it to wrap up this Hire2Retire overview in a nutshell. Are there any questions? I know this was a pretty brief run through, but if you do have any specific ones as well, or if you're interested in a demo, let us know, because we're happy to do a customized demo for you guys based off your specific HR system, your specific identity management platform, and focused on the areas that you're looking to improve or automate for you guys. But before then, I will just bring us all back here. That's about it for this webinar. If there are any questions you'd rather email them to us afterwards, we can go ahead and send you a recording of this webinar as well. So you'll be able to look through it at your leisure. If you do have any questions you want to send, you can also just respond to that email as well. Let us know. We're happy to answer any questions or give you a personalized demo. Other than that, thank you guys so much for your time with us today, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, everybody.